Hi, I'm Mr. Laveau, and you may or may not know me, but if you do know me, then welcome. Get that you never expected me to make these kind of shit. Uh, if you don't know me, I am an audio RP creator. I'm a voice actor, an artist, and well, also a podcast creator. Believe it or not, we are getting there. And a writer. If I don't know if I've already said that one already. And I happen to be an artist who is making things. Well, in this case, you can see that by the title of this video because clearly I made it and like I'm here to like show it off to you, you know? Yeah. Today I'm going to be basically talking about my OCs from my series Heart of Ingahd. You'll never believe it. It's a D&D nerd making a TTRPG, and it's also like inspired from the fact that I just wanted to step into fantasy, and I'll also just be able to tell you guys that yada 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 and what's going on, like how the TTRPG process is going and making it, because I am actually making this into a TTRPG. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into these speed paints. So first up on the list of characters that I'm going to be doing is Aranck. um, Aranck as a character is one that I really wanted to like do. He kind of like came as the last of the batch when I was designing characters for this series, mostly because I really had like no idea what I wanted to do for a wizard character, because that's how most of this started. It was really supposed to just be a fantasy audio, and that was it. But I basically took it and ran with the concept once I figured out that I wanted to like make this a more fleshed out and developed story. And Aranck as a character had to get more personality. It's not like I didn't love him before, but the man needed an update, and I was willing to provide. He is inspired specifically by the Cree tribe, the Plain Crees, yeah. And I had some consultation with a friend in order to make sure that I had some decent resources in terms of the clothing that the Cree people made themselves, and well, generally in understanding that they, as an indigenous culture like others, had their own language and writing systems. And once I locked in on the writing system part, I ran with that. I also saw like this one jacket that they had made, and I was like, that would be perfect for a character. And well, Aranck is here. I really wanted to sort of take that look of, how do I describe it? Leather and just like those tassels. Are we gonna call it tassels? I guess I'm gonna call it tassels for lack of a better word. If there is a better word, someone please tell me. But I took the tassels and sort of made it a bit of a staple on not only the ends of his jackets, but on his scarf, because I liked how it gave a sort of feather-like quality to it. And as most people who would have listened to the audio first would know and had seen of Aranck beforehand, he's a little bit more air inspired, like feather motif inspired than the rest of the cast. His original colors were kind of like all over the place with mostly primary colors. That's really because I stuck to like generally what sort of colors would have been used for these indigenous peoples in whatever fashion they made. But once I dug my heels a little and started just locking into what I wanted for this series and for this character, I played it a little bit more and decided to spruce things up here and there. Um, for the top, well, not the top, the jacket, I originally had it look very different. There was a lot more color interspersed between there, but as time went on, I kind of felt as though I should probably have grounded it in like at least it's like more monochrome, not monochrome, but at least a nicer palette. I think this one serves him better, mostly because it at least gives you something that's more focus to look at, and it really does shape up more of a wizardly silhouette like you would see out of some sort of JRPG. Oh god, it kind of reminds me of the Guy Wizard main character. I haven't played Guy in a long time, but it sort of does. Um, I also took inspiration from the fact that a lot of wizard character designs just have this big scarf for no reason. That's supposed to show that they're so educated and dignified. And Aranck is definitely that. I wanted him to come off as being more of a nervous and bookish guy. In his previous design, he had some looser braids, and that was fine. But when I decided it was time to like pack it up and do better, I went for something that was at least a little tighter to show that he was taking care of his hair better. Hair is very important to a lot of indigenous cultures, mine included. I'm Kalinago slash Carib, as the foreigners would call it, but Kalinago officially within the tribe. Hair is just as important to us as it is to our American indigenous brothers and sisters and peoples. And, I wanted to give him a nice little freshening up. Anyways, his last design also did not have gloves, which I thought I would change, mostly because I think gloves on any wizard sort of just looks cool, and I went for it. In the lore, he is not actually referred to a wizard. I kind of changed it around because, one, I don't think there needs to be that many distinctions for the kind of magic you can do. And so I rounded up his particular class of wizards into like the job of sorcerer, which congrats, I strayed away from D&D only to walk back into D&D. But as time goes on, you'll see how exactly it differs. Let's see, what else do I have to say? Oh yeah. I unified a lot more of his colors to be more reminiscent of generally air depictions. I know he's more earthy in tone, but I think from what I've presented here, it really gives him that nice, flowing, windy sort of vibe. From the scarf being raised, the billowing of the jacket, and all that. It really just sells that. As for the dark splotches on his like general coat and his pants, beforehand I had a lots of inspiration in like knowing he was a bookish character, but I never really showed it much. He looked very nervous before, but I really wanted it that this round he would be like, you could tell he was meant to just be in the book. What are words? You could tell that he was meant to be in a library and that he was meant to be scribbling away at a desk, doing stuff with ink, either, whether that was painting or writing and getting it all over himself. The world of Ingahd is pretty much set in a fantasy-ish sort of land. Additional design details. Let's see. I used crow feathers mostly because, well, either no, it's raven feathers. I remember. I used raven feathers because ravens are very symbolic within indigenous cultures, American indigenous cultures specifically, as being very witty characters. And I wanted that to carry through even as a symbol in Aranck's design. Yellow is also seen as, from what I saw, it can be a color of virtue or it can be worn during mourning. And for Aranck's character, without spoiling anything, I do think that will be coming up sooner or later. The earthy colors and tones, I guess we'll stick with that word, was really meant to just like be a basish color for you to at least ground the rest of the palette in. And the blues, well, the blues are really just there to be complimentary, but I thought it really looked nice, so we went with it. I also don't see a lot of characters who have like tooth gaps, and as someone who does have one, I think more characters should have it because it makes them look pretty, and we should be having more features like that. Anyways, that's Aranck. I hope you enjoyed him. From the wind-inspired guy to the water-inspired guy, we are on a roll. To be serious though, from contrasting classes, we are going from what is traditionally considered a D&D wizard to a D&D monk. However, within the world of Ingahd, this guy is known as a brawler. Well, he has a job as a brawler. In universe, he is a monk. And instead of calling him this guy, I'm going to introduce you to Sonu. I really love his design mostly because, yeah, I'm gay. I love big men. I love big muscle men. But also, he's Indian like I am, and I have a soft spot for big Indian men who are also a little bit kind and well, he's not a little bit kind. He is very kind. Who's also like got that little bit of himbo energy. um, and I think Sonu happens to communicate that very well. He's very outgoing, and well, he seems very outgoing and very ready for things, which he is in canon. Would I say he's like bursting with energy all the time? No, I would leave that to someone else. But he is one of the characters who is more aligned with the energy of water in terms of being chill, but also being ready to rush through things. When it came down to Sanu, his previous depiction, as noted by one of my friends, it did look like he was supposed to be referencing the air nomads, which worked in his favor at the time. It definitely communicated he was a monk. But for now, I felt I needed to change it up a little bit. With each character, you'll see that I grounded them a little bit in the elements, mostly for communicating them and for giving some better what's the word I'm looking for? Giving them a unifying motif in their designs so that you could at least tell that they were distinct while in a group, you know? um I already have like a water-based Indian character in Nexus, which is Oscar. Hi Pookie. I love him so much. He's like my little meow meow. But within like Heart of Ingahd, I really wanted to do it again and go with a whole different personality. Mostly because you can never fail with a water-based character, and also because I can and I can do what I want. So for Sonu's design, I drifted away from the air nomad inspiration and leaned a little more into what I would have seen from like Pokemon with water types. I want you to never doubt in your mind that Sonu is like based on a water type. You could so tell I am a writer. Anyways, yeah, I wanted his design to communicate water effectively between the hair, the wave symbology, the tattoos, the droplets that act as his necklace, well, the gem droplets and everything. I just went hard with it. The dhoti, actually, I really love it. Beforehand, I had not drawn a lot of Indian fashion. I think I will be changing that around. Because look at him. Look at him. He's so fun. He looks ready to go. And also, I just love the dhoti as a pants. I think if I had the opportunity, I would buy myself a pair. Back to character design. Sonu's character design is based on Indian Bollywood fantasy warriors, mostly the kinds that you would see with martial arts and yada yada yada. I really wanted to go for a depiction of an Indian man who wasn't just like this insecure, weak, nerdy guy. And I wanted to really lean more into just a himbo. I wanted it to be clear that he was Indian, but I also wanted it to be clear that this was a guy who had the energy, who looked like he was ready to go. He looked like a dude. You're getting so much from this. Details. To carry home his water sort of inspiration, you have the markings on his head, his eyes, his shoulders, and his arms, all carrying wave symbology, ripples, droplets, everything. If you could think water, it's there in the shape. You also have his wave markings along his dhoti, which really, I think, are really nice. I actually really do love the detail. I always make characters with fun clothing that I don't have but wish I could have. And I think that Sonu is the latest addition to that. Within his general pose, I wanted to communicate the idea of not the idea of floating water, the idea of flowing water. And I think it comes across very well in how his clothes and his hair sort of just moves, you know. In his previous design, his shoes also had that bit of coloration. I mean, sure, they've changed in patterning, but I think I decided to keep it in that general palette, mostly because, well, who was going to stop me, you know? If you ask me to go into greater detail about it, could not answer you. All I know is that I see nice colors and I put colors together. Just what it is. It also has that really nice beachy effect going for it, so really and truly, I think I struck gold on it. In the lore, Sonu is a character who really is a refugee that got adopted by a monastery. And as he grew up and dealt with his pain of being a refugee of war, he learned to master his emotions somewhat. He's not fully, well, I don't think he would fully get over your homeland being destroyed in a war, but he's come to a point of acceptance where he doesn't try to let it be his whole thing. He wants to, what's the word? Oh yeah, he wants to be an actualized person. And in his pilgrimage, in his general journey of being a monk, going from the monastery and then joining the party and going through Ingahd, he's really trying to find himself. He's trying to figure out what it is that interests him and what it is that he wants to do with his practice so that he can go into the future knowing what he wants for himself, as well as like what he wants to give out to other people through his like spiritualness. Spirituality, that's what the word is. As Sonu's character goes on, I want to communicate the fact that he's taking the steps of healing and integrating all of his past into becoming a better person and then helping others be a better person. He's very reminiscent of my own thoughts on spirituality and the healing journey that you can undergo as you sort of just like mesh yourself into it, you know? And there's a lot of media where you can see how spirituality leads you down a zealous route where you're not really thinking for yourself and you're more so trying to appease a standard of what people deem is like a deity, or like you're trying to fit in with what is considered a religious norm. And I think I would rather go down the route of exploring how spirituality can be used more to sort of center yourself rather than that. You know, we have a lot of different depictions of media and like spirituality that is not like Christianity itself, that lends more to telling it off as like this weird or just eccentric practice, and I would rather more so go into it as like this is just a different practice that you might not understand but works for this character because of X, Y, and Z, and he's not trying to put it on you, but he is showing you how it does help him. And yeah. That's Sonu in a nutshell. I think he's gonna be a great character the more that y'all get to know him. And yeah. That's him. Let's move on. Up next is Feng. Actually, one of my more favorite designs. I love Sonu as a character, and I love Aranck's glow up, but I do love Feng more than everyone else. And that is unfortunately my cross to bear because, listen, it's not just because he's like this lone wolf character who kind of has to be with this party because he's their guide, but also I love him on a conceptual basis. Don't leave me alone. Okay, listen. getting real, I do love his design mostly because of how much it sort of communicates. Um, a lot of it is mostly in the symbology of him. Lore wise, before we get into it, Feng is a cursed elf. He is a very jaded character. Jade, because you get it. He has like a jade sword. Anyways, he's a very jaded character in terms of all the experiences he's gone through, and he doesn't open up very easily to other people. His most familiar connection is with Nahome, who we'll get into later. But for now, you'll see that from how he looks alone, he probably doesn't take people's shit, and he also just he's there. He's there for the ride. He's not here for anything else. Anyways, I wanted a lot of Feng's whole thing to like carry over into like warrior who's seen a good bit of shit. For his design details, I went from changing his previous color palette, which was like more of darker blacks and reds, to whites, blacks, and reds, and that little pop of green in his sword. This was mostly because his previous design was like more so meant to be reminiscent of a wolf. His lycanthropy hadn't shown through better in his last design, so I wanted to change that up a bit. You can see it with like hopefully the fur that kind of clues you in, and like the tufts of his ears. With his design, I wanted to also hammer in the bits of Chinese elements that are key to his character. He wears a lot more white in his clothing, given the association of whites with death in Chinese culture. Particularly in the fact that the deceased are typically wrapped with white in ancient Chinese customs, as well as the fact that the ghosts of Chinese fantasy media and a bunch of kung fu movies really hammer home on like draping their dead in white. So, as a bit of a nod to what his character is, being a jaded ghost of his former self. In a way, you know? Another aspect to him, which kind of gets brought up in the audio, is the fact that he is very superstitious. He carries with him a jaded sword. Well, not jaded, a jade sword, which is meant to, well, in Chinese culture, supposed to be used as a ward for like good luck and protection and prosperity. But it was also used in ceremonial traditions. Why did that have a pause? It was used in ceremonial traditions in order to help like with official rituals and also in containing and warding off spirits. In universe, it is enchanted to actually move and cut like a sword, but it would do extra damage towards undead opponents. So there is that. Where was I going? Yeah, he's superstitious in the fact that he does not like the number 4. I wanted this to be an element to his character. I thought that the way that I would try and get through with this is that a lot of the elements that you see sort of being consistent in his design would only go up to like 3. So, for example, you can see 3 sections of white. You can see about 3 sections of black in his design as well. You can also see about 3 sections of red. He has 3 sections where you can see fur along his body that isn't his own. Like the fur wrapped around his waist, the fur on his earrings, and the fur all attached to his sword. The fur attached to his sword? Yeah. I guess the bigger elephant in the room. I won't really call it an elephant, mostly because I don't think it's that big of a thing, but it's a big thing, sort of, in a nice way, in a positive way. Not nice. I don't like the word nice. The big thing in a positive way is the fact that I wanted Feng to be an amputee, mostly because I wanted to play with the concept of a character who was a warrior and had like 1 arm. It's not the newest divergence from mainstream fantasy, but it is something I did want to include because I don't know, warriors with 1 arm is kind of cool. A guy who can wield a heavy sword with 1 arm is a pretty sick concept. It does go hard, you cannot blame me. But also, we should see a lot more amputated and like, not amputated, a lot more amputees and disabled people in fiction, especially fantasy fiction, which already gets pressed so hard because of the fact of like magical ableism in your land, you know. Um, yeah, I wanted to definitely go for that. And, you know, with Fong's character design, I think he ended up being pretty cool. He does give that loner wolf vibe. He looks like the grouchy mentor. Yeah, he's seen some shit. And most importantly, he looks cool. That's my main thing. If he looks cool, then he's done his job. If he communicates things about himself through his design, he's also done his job. And I love that for him. Last but most certainly not least, the glue and heart of the group is Naomi or Naomi. I'm pretty sure it's Naomi. I think I got. No, it's Naomi. It's Naomi. Right. He's my one character. What do you mean I don't know his name? Anyways, yes, the last but not least of the group is Naomi. He is a troll medium who, well, in the world of Ingahd, mediums are people who are attuned to the spirits of the world. He channels them for his attacks and communes with them, and is also able to traverse in his astral form along the spiritual realm, where, you know, he can interact with them on a physical basis, but leaves his body exposed. The typical astral shenanigans, you know. In my universe, I wanted trolls to be more elementally bodied. So you can have trolls that are based on like rocks, fire, in that case magma, water, let's see what else. Well, water is more like coralish bodies, I think. It'll depend. I'll flesh it out more as I get into it. But with them, I wanted to sort of just like give them elemental bodies. A part of their advantages is that they are not susceptible to like normal attacks. They can also be like immune to the magical sicknesses of Ingahd. And that's mostly because they're made out of elements. They're only more susceptible towards like, well, the other elements. But you know, it kind of works out. In his previous design, he communicated a lot more of like the healer doctor vibe, which worked for what it was because he was only fleshed out to be a healer and that was it. But going into it this time, I wanted to sort of just like, I don't know, dig a little into it. Where was I going? Yeah, I have ADHD, forgive me. Yeah, he was really, I think he did pretty well for what he was. And I think the one thing I would probably reincorporate if I could were the red sort of thorns coloration in his hair. I changed that around mostly because I didn't want the red to distract, and I, I kind of miss it. But at the same time, I think he's better without it too. It works for what it is. In his current incarnation, he is a medium, which I've already explained, and he's also a chef that sort of like cooks for the group. He's their domestic guy. He is a caretaker of sorts. I know there's like a lot of this whole black guys who are the stereotypical, well, black people who are the stereotypical caretakers, and like they're strong and able-bodied and they're like big and tough and yada yada yada. But I didn't want to do that mostly. I don't know. I wanted to lean more into his character as being soft but stern. He's also a mentor character within the group. And I wanted him to be the more caring mentor, the softer one, the one who tends to everyone in like helping them. Well, helping. I'm really not helping myself. He's sounding more like a magical Negro. Anyways. I promise he's not. But anyways, I don't know. There's a lot of stereotypical depictions of black men who are like violent and aggressive, and I wanted to go with one who was softer. I wanted you to also see he was supposed to be inspired by a black man, and that his face is meant to be seen as black, because I'm not about to pull that shit with you. You're about to know who is who and what. and exactly what inspires them. I am not about to pull my punches there. Listen, we need more black characters. I will give you more black characters. I am a black man. I will be giving them to you. Yeah. I went with a more potted plant look. I tuned up his pants to look more clay pot inspired and kept his boots within a similar color to just like join with that. He really does give like a hanging sort of fruitish rock plant, and it works for him. In his previous design, he also was not showing as much skin, which I fixed because I like men. I like men. What can I say? To sort of mimic the hairy body type, because we should also have men with hair on their chest and their arms and their back. And because he is a troll made of rock, instead of doing hair, I gave him moss to mimic that. I'm so smart, can you tell? I'll stop talking like that. But anyways, um, don't ask me how it grows there. I kind of think it's like in between like cracks that sort of form up, like you know how we have pores where hair goes. Yeah. Uh, I didn't want to do any sort of specific symbology in the patterns along the fabric wrapped around him, mostly because I hate to say it, I'm not that engrossed in African symbolism and patterning. I would love to be, mostly because I love to like understand the symbology of things. But I kept it simple with like these sorts of squarish, boxish shapes that definitely give him a more sturdy vibe, or at least communicates that through the fabric. A lot of his also jewelry, not really jewelry, but a lot of his accessories are also vine and plant based. And if you notice, he also has a sort of braid along his belt. I really love it. It's supposed to be reminiscent of his team, but also it's very cute, and I think it adds a nice little personal touch. You'll see in his beard are berries, which I thought was really fun. And to show he's a little bit battle worn and aged, you can see the different colorations in his rocky skin and the cracks and the little digs that have arisen from that, you know? I think I wanted to sell a bit more of his chef motif this time around, even though it kind of came through there. But as a guy who's really into cooking and really cares about the community aspect of it, I wanted him to like show that this is a guy who does handle food. You can see the knives in his hair, which may be antithetical to the fact that he is supposed to be like more of a healer. But as a guy who is made of stone, he doesn't really have to really worry about getting cut on taking them out of his hair. So it makes sense. It also keeps people away from his hair and from touching it, because either you'll get poked by the thorns or you will get stabbed and cut by the knives. Win-win either way. What more do I have to say about him? I don't know. I just love him. I think he's a great character design. I love how he is as a whole person, and I'm excited for him. His entire arc is mostly based on right now, he's a mentor, but I want to sort of pull him into a newer role. I think he's going to be rediscovering himself and rediscovering what it is that he wants out of life. Because he's joined the party as this character who wanted to understand more of the world, but he settled down with Feng in this pseudo-romantic and platonic sort of vibe. And, you know, they're husbands, but they're not husbands, but they haven't made it official, but they will be making it official soon in the series. Wink, wink. He's just going to be showing that he has yet to fully understand himself. He thinks he's got himself figured it out. He thinks he knows what he is and what he wants, but then something comes along, and then he realizes that he wants more than what's just being offered to him as an adventurer. He doesn't just want to be with Feng all the time. He wants to settle down. He wants to make a life for himself. He wants to have that restaurant. He even talks about his own dreams, you know? But yeah, that's what I got for Nahome. I think he came out pretty well, and I really love his design. I love the extra pops of color on the belt that really get your attention. I love the green. I love the orange. Listen, I love a good plant design. Well, a plant focused design, and I think I did well with that. Ay, ay, and that is it. Those are my current characters for Heart of Ingahd. It's kind of a work in progress. I have like the core mechanics down that I want to introduce in the TTRPG. I'm constantly scripting for like what I want. I think as the series goes on, I may invite like more voice actors to join and voice other characters or like make their own because I always love collaborating in these sort of bits. But yeah, these were really fun to do. This was also really fun to record. I just really had fun doing this. I had fun making these characters. I'm having fun writing them and getting to explore more of these themes as I get into them. If you're interested in hearing about them and hearing their stories, you can already check out the Heart of Ingahd video that is recently been up. You can find it within my videos. There's also a playlist, I think. I don't know if I made one. If I haven't, then by the time you hear this, one has probably been made. TTRPG developments and speed paints like this will probably come out. Patreon will always be the first to see these things, mostly because they spend their money and they do it on me and I have to treat them. So, besides that, thank you for joining. Thank you for listening along. I hope this was a fun little ramble for you to get invested in, and I hope to see you around. I am going to be doing more of these, so keep your eye on that, and that's it. Bye!